So our last one here, we're talking about the light independent reactions of photosynthesis. These are also known as Calvin cycle, after the scientist who discovered the cycle. And to recap, our overall inputs for photosynthesis are what? Got a couple of things. Inputs for photosynthesis. Yes. Sunlight. Plus 6 water, plus what else? 6 CO2. What does this produce or yield? What are the products then of photosynthesis? We get 1 glucose. And what else? 6 oxygen, O2. In our previous step with the light-dependent reactions, we used some of these inputs. What were those inputs used? We used the water, and we also used the sunlight. So I'm going to cross those out. Those produced what? What was produced? The oxygen. So what we have left from our overall inputs and outputs, we haven't yet used the carbon dioxide, we haven't produced a glucose. We're going to see these two in the light-dependent reactions, the Calvin cycle. To revisit our chloroplast, where photosynthesis takes place, these circles that I'm drawing, again, are the thylakoids. Inside of them is the lumen. The space, it's kind of like the cytoplasm of the cell, but inside of the chloroplast is called the stroma. And the Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma, similar to the matrix of the mitochondria. So just like Krebs cycle of respiration, this is also a cycle, so we're going to kind of come back and recreate something that we start with. Our first overall input for this process is going to be 3 carbon dioxide molecules. They are going to combine with a molecule called RUBP for short. We'll come back to that a little bit later. And there's a very important molecule that helps facilitate the combination of RUBP and carbon dioxide. It's an enzyme that's one of the most common enzymes on the planet. You better remember what it is. Rubisco. Rubisco helps to facilitate this process to produce a carbon-based molecule. That's got 6 carbons in it. As well as phosphates on either side. This molecule that Rubisco's helped to produce is really not stable. So I'm going to write underneath it that it's short-lived because it doesn't last very long. It doesn't stay in this form. RUBP is a 5-carbon molecule. Again, we'll come back to it a little bit more later. And we have 3 of them, so I'm going to write 3 times next to them. We combine that with the 3 carbons from the carbon dioxide. So in total, we have 3 times this 6 carbon molecule. So this molecule doesn't last very long. It's short-lived, and it changes forms. It gets modified to become a 3-carbon molecule. It has 1 phosphate attached to it. And this 3-carbon molecule is called 3-phosphoglycerate. In our previous 6-carbon molecule, we had 3 of those. So that means that we had 18 total carbons. Have we lost any carbons here? Yes or no? No, we have not lost any carbons. So now we've got a 3-carbon molecule. We're going to have 6 of them. We still have 18 total carbons. 3-phosphoglycerate has 1, 2, 3 carbons. We have 6 of them, which means that we have 18 total carbons. I bring up the carbons and I'm keeping track of them because they're going to become important a little bit later on. This 3-phosphoglycerate is going to be modified so that it has now 2 phosphates, one on either end. It's going to be called 1,3-biphosphoglycerate. We haven't lost any carbons, so we still have 6 of them for a total of 18 carbons. And in order to add a phosphate, we need some phosphate. And that phosphate is going to come in the form of ATP. So 6 ATP will be used to add in this additional phosphate. Our 1,3-biphosphoglycerate is going to be modified yet again. Still a 3-carbon molecule, but it loses a phosphate and gets rearranged a little bit. And that molecule is now called glyceraldehyde. Phosphate, or G3P for short. In order to facilitate this change, six NADPH are going to be used, releasing 6 NADP plus, 6 hydrogen ions, and 6 phosphate groups. The G3P molecule has 3 carbons, and we have 6 of them, but one of them is going to get released. How many G3Ps is that going to leave us with? We've got 5 now, for a total of how many carbons? We've got 15 total carbons now. G3P has 3 carbons. These 3 carbons originate from our initial 3 carbon dioxides that are input. So we've lost a molecule that contains 3 carbons. Where did those 3 carbons come from? They came from the 3 carbons, the CO2s that we initially started with. These 5 G3P molecules are going to be modified to become our RUBP that we started with. And RUBP stands for ribulose biphosphate. It's got phosphates, 2 phosphates. And energy is required to make this happen, and that energy comes in the form of 3 ATP. We're going to go in, resulting in 3 ADP, in which One phosphate from each has been attached. We didn't lose any carbons here, so we still have 15 total carbons from what we started with previously. Have we made a sugar yet? No. G3P, go down back to where that's released. This is 1/2 of glucose, or a 6-carbon sugar. It's only 1/2 of it. So how many times does Calvin cycle have to take place to make a full sugar? 2 times. So this is the Calvin cycle. And we need it 2 times equals 1 sugar. That also makes sense because our input for this process is 3 carbon dioxides. And we know from our original discussion of the inputs and outputs of photosynthesis, we have 6 carbon dioxide. So 2 times means 6 carbon dioxide are going to be used. And those 6 carbons, glucose has got 6 carbons. That's how the sugar is going to be produced. The last part to identify for this is breaking this cycle up into a couple of different phases. The first phase use some white dotted lines to show. RUBP is kind of involved in 2 phases, so I'm going to split it in the middle. This first phase, phase number 1, is called carbon fixation. And it's called carbon fixation because carbon is being attached to the RUBP by the enzyme ribisco. The second stage phase 2 is reduction. The number of carbons is reduced, and the NADPH is reducing to form the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So that's phase 2. That leaves us with one last stage, phase 3, which is called regeneration. And in this phase, the RUBP is being regenerated so that the cycle can continue again.